Fantastic. And now we have Gina from Results. So Gina's been working with Results since 2013, and she firmly believes that where you were born, where you live, shouldn't determine whether you live. So I'll hand over to her.
Thank you. I think I'm already mic'd up. Can everyone hear me? Great. We've got mood lighting. This is cool. Good afternoon, everyone. As Catherine said, my name is Gina, and I am the Grassroots Engagement Manager at Results International Australia. It's a real privilege to be here with you this weekend, especially getting to speak before the phenomenal Professor Sharon Lewin, who is literally working to find a cure for HIV, which in my mind makes her a bit of a rock star. So to be up here sharing a stage makes me feel pretty good. Now, Professor Lewin, you may not remember this, but I think we've actually met once before. It was at the 2014 International AIDS Conference. Was anybody else there? Was anyone at the 2014 International AIDS Conference here in Melbourne? A few people, cool. But you'll be forgiven for not remembering me because at the time I was dressed as tuberculosis. That's me on the right. And yes, being an AIDS conference, I did regularly get mistaken for a condom. At the time, we were drawing attention to the link between TB and HIV. TB being what is responsible for the deaths of 1 in 3 people living with HIV. At the time of the conference, it was 1 in 5. And then we got some more data, and the picture became a bit bleaker. We've been talking about the many faces of global health this weekend, and these are some of the more unusual ones. And at Results, we don't routinely dress up as infectious diseases, but rather, at Results, we exist to build the public and political will to end hunger and the worst aspects of poverty. So as such, we care deeply about ending epidemics like tuberculosis, like HIV. And as such, we care about Australia's investment in mechanisms such as the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB and malaria. And we do this by enabling people to have transformative experiences, to become engaged, informed and powerful citizen advocates who are equipped to lead their leaders to inform and mobilise their political leaders into action on extreme poverty and global health. I'd like to do a quick straw poll now. Can you please put your hand up if you consider yourself to be a bit of an expert or really passionate about something? Anything, it doesn't really matter what it is. I'm glad your hand's up, Sharon. That's good. Right, that should be just about everybody given this conference. Keep your hand up. Now I want you to keep your hand up in the air if you know the name of your Member of Parliament. If you know the name of your Member of Parliament. Cool, quite a few hands stayed up, that's good. It's probably a bit of a sampling bias here. Now I want you to keep your hand up nice and straight up in the air. If you've ever gone and met with them or written them a letter about the issue that you're really passionate and know a lot about. Yeah, so quite a few hands just went down. So everyone, you can all put your hands down now. Thank you. And my question is, how can we expect our political leaders to represent us, to be informed on issues that they're voting on and making decisions about if we aren't talking to them? We really need to lead our leaders, and Results exist to bridge that gap between people and Parliament. The theme of this forum is identity, and we've been looking at the many faces of global health. And the faces I predominantly work with at Results look a bit like this. Passionate, committed, everyday people using their voices to influence political decisions that will bring an end to poverty. Those passionate, committed, everyday people are both our volunteers and arguably also the political leaders that they talk to. So people like Nicole, top left, extreme left. She's a small business owner. Josh, he's also in the picture top left. He's a student. Jordan, who is in the middle picture to the right of Natasha Griggs. He was a landscape gardener at the time, now he's a paralegal. Husnia, bottom left, who is working in admin. And Maria, top right, who is a doctor. And also people like Lindsay. Lindsay is in the bottom picture on the left next to Tanya Plibersek. She's she's an author and a ballroom dance teacher. who built relationships with her elected representatives in Tasmania. And she got 3 Tasmanian senators from 3 different political parties to co-sign an opinion piece that got published in the Mercury, calling on Australia to take decisive action against tuberculosis in the Asia-Pacific region. When you think about that for a minute, senators from Tasmania, right, probably the furthest from the TB epidemic in Asia-Pacific, caring enough about this issue to put their name to an opinion piece, all calling for the government to do the same thing. Sometimes people describe my job as herding cats. I think sometimes it's more like taming lions. Lindsay is one of a small but passionate group of advocates who are ordinary people just like you and me, who've been building parliamentary support across this year for a strong and fair Australian pledge to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB and malaria in order to keep fighting these diseases that thrive in environments of discrimination. And why do they do this? Well, they do this because they want to see an end to poverty. They want to see an end to epidemics in the world. They want everyone to have the same opportunities in life they've had, and they aren't content to be bystanders. The efforts of people like Lindsay culminated in something that I thought was quite extraordinary. On Thursday, we handed over 135 signed letters of support expressing strong Australian support for the Global Fund. 135 letters got handed over to Julie Bishop, our Minister for Foreign Affairs. What's extraordinary about this is that they weren't signed by our volunteers, they weren't signed by members of the public, they were signed by her political parliamentary colleagues. They were signed by members of parliament, senators from across the political spectrum and across the country, who'd been moved by our volunteers to act. Along with those letters, a 38-page book of media generated by our volunteers, including the op-ed by Lindsay and the op-ed that was published in the Canberra Times. Well, this wasn't included because it was today, but there was an op-ed in the Canberra Times today by one of our volunteers as well. As well as this, this image was handed over to the Minister for Foreign Affairs. This is parliamentarians and political candidates taking our pledge to play their part to end the world's worst epidemics. And I think all of this effort is kind of extraordinary. I really do admire the efforts of my volunteers who do all these things and see the world, see the problems in the world and see their role to do something about it, despite the many, many other things going on in their lives and their many other priorities. I'd like to end by thanking everyone who came to our stall during the Global Fair and wrote a letter to Julie Bishop. And those who were in our Reimagine Time session know that results is about long-term, meaningful action. So I'd like to invite you all to consider joining one of our groups. We have many groups around the country where you can be supported to take your expertise, your passion and your stories and share them with the people who need to hear from you when making decisions that affect our people and its planet. I'd like to thank Global Ideas for having me here today. Thank all of you for your commitment to making the world better, and thank Professor Lewin particularly for allowing me to share the stage with her very briefly today. If there's one message I can leave you all with, it would be this one. How might we put into practice what we've learned this weekend, and how might we be the leaders of our leaders? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gina.